Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. It's the season, isn't it? We're taking a look back at, it's about a year. We're in that season, a season for accounting. And so we're getting all sorts of reviews, impressions, comments, opinions on 1 year of the Bola Ahmed Tinubu administration. So today, that's where we're going to be. And our guest this morning is joining us from our Abuja studios, Otumba Segun Showunmi. Otumba Showunmi is a political affairs analyst and PDP stakeholder. Good morning to you, Otumba.
And how are you feeling the 1 year in office booze?
Yeah. Okay, I can see. That's why you're as bright as that. A year in office, and I can see your bright countenance. So, I guess there might be a lot to talk about. Maybe why don't we start off by, it's been quite a difficult year globally. It's not just in Nigeria or West Africa. It's been quite a challenging year. So maybe we should start off with, your impression concerning ourselves with home, meaning Nigeria. And in the time, how well do you think the president and his team, of course, have handled affairs?
Okay, thank you, Yori. First of all, let me say congratulations to the president and his team. And congratulations to Nigeria that we've had 25 years of steady democracy. I have spent the last 2 weeks really thinking about the country, asking myself one key question. What exactly is the point of view, the view or the mind by which a patriotic Nigerian that is not in the president's party ought to use to review the country and even his efforts? And the more I followed that trajectory, the more sober I become. I'm sober because I first of all started looking at 25 years that we've been in democracy and looking at what are the gains we've made, what has happened to our people, and then looking at the last 9 years, of 8 years of APC and of President Buhari, and then his own year, then taking a look at all the policy attempts, the directions we wanted to go, the kinds of things that they are saying, the emotions of the people in the country, the circumstance of the global economic tanking as a result of all of the COVID eras and all that, the policy direction, and what can we do to make it better? And I will say, without apologies to anybody, that if I accept that he met the type of economy he met, then I will say, okay, I can give him a pass mark for courage. Most men will run out of that office immediately they got in if they found out exactly just how things were. You didn't have money. We had over borrowed. We had no headroom even for major negotiations. We were padding and backing our currency with monies we didn't have. We had not created the infrastructure that can, stimulate the growth the way we want. Our citizens are naturally and as they should be in a hurry, because unfortunately the Nigerian citizen has been in a perpetual state of, give us time, almost since 1976. And then I said to myself that, okay, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I get it. I get where you're trying to go, but let me now tell you some of the things that I think we now need to review properly.
Yep.
The first is, what makes the citizens of Nigeria feel so unpleased with their government? Government come, government go, government come, government go. I think we have gotten to a point now where we must put the people of our country, the poor people of our country, the mass of the people of our country as the centerpiece of our policy direction and planning. And when I say that, I mean that before we go on any big avant-garde feel-good projects and all of that, we should ask ourselves that, how will the Nigerian even be impacted by this project? That's one. The second thing I want to say to him frontally is that I am convinced, and nobody can shift me from that, he has not put together the best team I think he could have put together if he had allowed himself more robustness of, other people's contributing people of, competence. I look at his ministerial press review for 1 year. I can say, okay, I get where some of them are going, but I can also tell you that there are a few of them that need to go like immediately. If your economy is the kind of economy he has inherited, let's just save him the need to be blaming him for things he could not have been directly influencing. And then, for whatever reasons, because the argument on all sides was the same, we don't want subsidy, and he just took it out the first day, I would have expected that his Minister of Agriculture, more than anybody else, would have been very, very, very serious about the work. I know for a fact that they've not even done enough with the African Development Bank facility of 150 billion that they got that was supposed to give them 3 seasons of farming, 1 season of wet, 1 season of dry, 1 season of wet. I know they've only done 1 season and they didn't do much with the dry season farming, which would have given them more opportunity to look at other products like cassava, maize, and what have you. I know they've done a little bit on grain, and I would say that if you have floated the currency with its own consequence, if you have removed subsidy, and that means obviously passing the burden of higher cost to the citizen, you ought to know that your greatest next major assignment is making sure that you can rack up food production so that you can help domestic consumption. In that, the Minister of Agriculture doesn't know what he's doing. He needs to go. In terms of his aviation, because I've heard that one talked to a lot, I think that with due respect to him, I get the energy with which he wants to make things happen. But I think with due respect, Professor Skiamu needs to really begin to ask himself that what is the best tone of voice of a minister to communicate in an economy and in a space that people are generally very angry? You can't come and be saying, oh, Air Nigeria, because you have to ask yourself, that Air Nigeria policy you're talking about is actually the policy of your APC government. And so even if you want to say we're not continuing it, your tone of voice must not be such that you are trying to show that a cabinet that you were even part of, because you're a minister of state in that cabinet, you're trying to show that, okay, you guys are there now, and that can be a little bit off-putting. The other thing that I think they need to worry about is that I've become convinced that they're not spending enough money on national orientation. When you look at our country, wait, 1 second, let me just land here, Yori. You have to ask yourself in this country that,
I didn't want to.
Yeah, you want to ask yourself, thank you. You want to ask yourself a question in this country. Everything considered, why will more money be going to local governments? More money will be going to the governors at subnational level, and the governors themselves and local government administrators don't get the fact that if they don't carry their own part of the responsibility, it's too much to put everything on the head of just one man in Abuja who's far away. Part of the reason why they get more money is so that they can also fix the issues in their area. And all of them, federal and state and local government, cannot be running on an avant-garde set of projects or we're going to do infrastructure, which basically is just an opportunity for them to skin money off the people, when none of them is even saying, my responsibility is pro-poor people, pro-prop things that people can impact now. There's no law that says states cannot be making big investment in agriculture, even for the purposes of creating the food that their own people eat. And then the people on their own end. I'm not happy with especially the big political voices, and I don't want to really get angry with them and mention their names. It is not the duty of a leader or a potential leader to look at all issues of governance, not reviewing it and say, okay, why did he do this? Just coming onto the table every day to kind of like incite the people, make them angry, talk a lot of rubbish that even if you give them the responsibility, they can't articulate a clever way out, use cliches to just make a difficult situation even bad. And in that regard, I just say we have come to the point where I expect the president to now begin to say, how do we review the democratic process and procedure that throws up leaders in our country? Because the argument is that shall a political party or a political process that is not efficiently administered is not ideologically stimulating, shall it be able to throw up leaders that can do better? And why do you think even the opposition party, PDP inclusive, and even the Labour Party, why do you think they are laboring so hard to be able to even engage this government intellectually and in a way that people say, okay, these guys are not just hating the country, they don't just reach the country, but they know what they're saying. I'll tell you why. Because all of them were ideologically on the same page. They were ideologically on the same page that we're going to remove subsidy, ideologically on the same page that we're going to float the currency, ideologically on the same page we're going to sell refinery, ideologically on the same place that we're going to take money from pension to fund infrastructure. And so there's really not much to choose between 6 and a half a dozen, really. And you can't be so angry if you didn't get, whether you consider it fraud or not, I don't care. If you are not the president at this time, you can't be so angry when you see somebody implementing the kinds of policies you said you were going to implement. So I think that if we're not able to accept the reality that whatever challenge we're facing, there will be room for improvement. Human activities, personal attitude, character, tone of voice, your secrecy will impact governance anyway, because the human beings are different. We cannot be a nation that will be 25 years in democracy and just be telling ourselves that nothing is working. Because that was how we said nothing was working for Jonathan. And then we started liking Jonathan when Buhari came. Then you people say, you don't like Buhari. And now some of you, I hear the voices of people saying they now like Buhari. And now you're suddenly saying Bola Tinubu is whatever you're saying he is. And I know that tomorrow, if we're not even careful, and we still start having this conversation the way I want us to have it now, we're going to still come back and start saying we want Bola Tinubu. So after 25 years of self-rule, we need to hold the brakes. We need to let the younger people in the country understand that you don't talk without, first of all, research. And that even if you have a strong view that you want to put on the table, you must also be sensitive to the fact that this is a multidimensional, multi-poverty environment. This is a country that has a lot of language and a lot of tribes. This is a country that of ethnicity, different religion. So you need to generally say, Nigerians, let us calm down. Whether we like it or not, we're stuck with a 4-year tenure because we agreed to democracy. And we must stick with it. And that does not mean that we will not have enough time to say, okay, bring all of your scoreboard, let us see. I believe that the president, I want to believe him, let me put it this way, that when he said the worst is over and that now the country has gotten out of the very deep end, and therefore I want to charge him, as Bola Ahmed Tinubu, President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, you have to recognize that a nation of over 220 million people cannot be bleeding in all of the corners of the nation when whatever it is that you say you are building or whatever policy you say you are running is actually affecting us. And one of the big things that is affecting us, which I wish he can legislate and say, never again would we do this in this country, is the devaluation of our currency. You know why? Because when you devalue the currency with the reckless abandon at which we have been doing it over the years since the Babangida regime, what you do is that you destroy the savings of the people of the country. And any nation that cannot rack up enough savings, steady savings that can retain the value of the monies that people have saved, you won't have enough money to put into investment in your country. And if you are going to be looking to foreign investors, it's like saying you want mercenaries to come and help you build your country. You have to also understand that for every time foreign investors bring in money, either to your stock or to your real sector or your manufacturing, they are also going to want to do capital reparation because they've come here for profit. But we now need to look for a country. We need to figure out how to make sure this is a country that works for the people of this country. That's my opening comment.
Well, it's quite a full one, Shegun, and I think I'd like to thank you for the tone that you set. You said it all in there, and largely you said that the circumstances in which any president, that was to take over at that time would have found himself, you're making comments against that backdrop. So thank you very much for the tone that you have set. Not that everything is as well as it could be. You've made that point very, very clear. But then the man himself, as you know, in relation to the comments you made about the selection of his cabinet, had said that this was going to be up for review anyway. And so people are going to want to hold him to that. And you've made one or two suggestions yourself. But before we go any further, let me bring on Mr. George calling in from Ikeja here before we continue. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for holding on.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning.
Good morning to the guest.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, I don't know how fair you expect a chieftain of an opposition, the main opposition party, to assess a government. But be that as it may,
We'd
truth
like to
must be told.
Okay. We'd like to hear it from all sides.
Yes, truth must be told. This country needs to be reset. And what we need to reset is what I see the president doing. You must definitely have a team, which he has had, and every member of the team cannot perform at the same level. But as developments happen, you would know where one person or the other is a misfit. Maybe where you put him is a wrong place, not that he doesn't have ability, where his ability lies is in another place. You take him to that place, or you discover that this person doesn't have the capacity to the average you want for performance. Then you can drop such a person. I have told friends that those who I talk to that do not hold the same political views with me, I told them that before you can actually do a fair assessment of an administration, you have to spend about 2 years. We are just 1 year now. And you can see that no minister has even spent 1 year. They were appointed after about 3 months or 4 months that the government came into force. So it's rather a little early.
But even in that time, Mr. George, but even in that limited time, you surely will agree that there are some ministers that have stood out.
Yes.
Yes.
You can. The one that will do well, you can know him from even the first month. From his traces, I can point out a few.
Okay.
You see the Minister of Works.
Yes.
Nobody needs to tell you that that person knows what he's doing.
All right.
You see the Minister of SCT. You see the Minister of Aviation. You see the mining minister. You see the CBN governor. You see, even the Minister of Finance himself. The person that will do well, it is from day one. You sense it from his tone alone. I'm sorry to disagree with the speaker on Festus Keyamo. I know Festus personally. His voice is that of an activist. He acts his words. Anybody that acts his words must talk with some force.
Okay.
And that's what it is. Festus is a versatile person.
All right.
If you like, put him in another ministry and you will see the wonders he will do there too.
Thank you very much, Mr. George. I really appreciate your call. And indeed, as I said, it's an open house. We want to hear it because, in fact, indicating that we want to hear it, we're not just taking all the pros. We also are concerned with how do other people see it. And it is in that sense that Segun Osowumi, he's an excellent guest. He'll give us the perspective from, quote-unquote, outside. And all of us are still inside Nigeria. So thank you very much, Mr. George. Relating to the point about Festus Keyamo and his tone of voice vis-a-vis national orientation, he's a public servant. And I think that's as much as Segun was saying at the time, that a public servant dealing with the public, and that he would hope that he would have liked it to be different. But thank you very much. Segun, did you want to comment?
Let me say that, I'm coming to say to you that, Yori, you see, the business of governance is so serious that I hold the view that being in opposition does not mean that we're looking for the guy in charge not to succeed. No, that's where I'm different from most. I insist that being in opposition means we are bringing an alternative viewpoint or some, arguments around the issues. And if we have something that we're so strongly opposed, we'll say we are. He doesn't get it. Let me flip it to him so that he will understand. Because if you are a fan of the government and you just want us to be feeling like psychophants, nobody's going to do that with you. 1 year is not a short time to review policies. I can give you a few flip-flop they've done that will indicate that they don't even understand how to manage the national bureaucracy of a federal government. You can't bring out the list of board men for academic institutions like universities, something that has become almost routine over the last 25 years, and you have to withdraw it. Does that suggest that you thought about it very well, or that the institution that was supposed to vet them did the right work before you are putting it out and withdrawing it, before the man will be saying that we don't know what we're talking about? Or are you supposed to be running a policy for like a year that we're seeing that the long and short of that policy is that even your manufacturing sector is being impacted negatively? When you increase the price of, light, and at the same time the price of diesel is high, where do you expect your manufacturers to bloody get the ability to be sustainable and competitive in a global economy? If you're talking about your CBN and is making it seem like people are stupid here, if you are borrowing money at 35% to go and do investment, please, what are you going to invest it on that you're going to be able to make even, pay the debt, and not run into trouble? And if you are coming up with an economic policy that we're trying to understand, after all, you have the dollar now at about 1,500, and our currency is the worst in the world. Okay, we're saying we get what you are trying to do. It doesn't mean we agree, and we're saying that, okay, let's give you some time, but I don't want any APC person to come and start making us feel, or, making us irritated that maybe everybody in the country is crazy. You have 220 million or thereabout people in this country. How many of them can even afford a daily meal now? How many of them can even afford anything now? People are basically scrounging. And if we tell you that government, even the Bola Tinubu government, with due respect, could have started with the low-hanging fruit for the poor. But I take note of the fact that perhaps there was nothing to hang. When you come into I'm not the president, he's the president. When you come in charge of the country, and I made the arguments for him very strong, even stronger than the spokespeople make it. That look, if the headroom is so small and there's really nothing to take, then that means that even that low-hanging fruit has to wait, because you have to bring in the cherry before you can share it. And I don't think that just because it's TVC, people should come and start talking nonsense. Anyway, back to the issue.
I appreciate that. But sorry to come in, Chegun. I appreciate that. Let me bring in Reverend Dominic, who is also waiting to join the program. Good morning, Reverend.
Good morning, Yori. Good morning, Otumba Shegu. Yori, honestly, Otumba Shegu have been fair. When I saw him on this program this morning, I was a little bit shaky because I knew him very well. He always speaks from his heart and truth. But he has been fair on his analysis. We are all Nigerians. I don't think anybody who is a Nigerian, who is conscious of politics and politics of Nigeria, will blame this government about the place we are today. E.g., if the last government, which is Buhari, voted for, I was beaten because of him, have rebuilt refineries, the story of subsidy will be a thing of the past. And this government will build on that. But it's like this government came and started building on a fresh foundation, as if the government started a year ago. So nobody can blame this Tinubu government totally on the issues we are today. There's something Otumba said, I've said before. They are not communicating very well.
Yeah.
That Ministry of Communication must be rigid. I've told you, President must be a communication expert. The man that in the other Ministry of Mining or what, if you bring him back to communication, Nigeria needs to be loud and clear. We're in a big trouble. There's no doubt about it. But somebody must give us hope. We need that hope from this government. Number two, this government will give them some credit. Why? What the Attorney General said already was like a patriotic. If you come to Nigeria today, APC have over other 14 or 15, 16 states. PDP has also. But the man said we should go back to INEC so we can have a fair election in the state. That man is something as a politician, it's something as a patriot. And that idea is from our President Tinubu, who is a pure Democrat, that we must find a way that both in local government and in state, people will come to represent themselves. The worst we are seeing today in states is that when you conduct election, no position, even for cancellation, that is not good for us. But what I'm trying to say, Yuri, this government has shown us they can do well, but let them communicate better.
Indeed.
Let them communicate effectively.
I hear you, Reverend. Thank you very much, Reverend, for calling in. And there you go, Shegun. Now, please carry on with your comments.
Now, thank you very much. What I wanted to even add to it is that, look, don't you as Nigerians even get tired of having only a gloomy look, demarketing your country, putting everything out there in the international community, making it seem as if the people that are running the country are crazy and there's one messiah somewhere that is not going to deal with the real issues. Some of us have been at this place for such a long time that we're just in a hurry to make the country do well. And that political colors does not mean that you will not be realistic in looking and analyzing issues. So that's that. Now, in terms of what should we be looking for in the next 1 year, I would like to say clear that, look, what are you going to do with a country that is building avant-garde, grandiose infrastructure when its people can't even use it? What are you going to do with a country that is converting education, which is a social good, into a business model template that only seeks to be giving them loans? That you want to give student loans, as beautiful as it is, a commensurate investment in a social good for education is critical. You want to do private sector-led hospitals, fine. But that you have to understand that at the end of the day, the question will be asked, how will the people pay for it? And if you have a country that is as large as this, and the vast majority of our people are just struggling, you need to begin to ask questions about even the subnational. Can I even ask you something and prick you, Yori? How does it even sound that in one breath we're saying we want true federalism, whatever that means, we want devolution of powers to the states, and yet it is still the presidency or the federal government that has to go to the Supreme Court to come and figure out a way to legislate that subnational authorities at governor level just to allow a tier of government that is under their supervision to work. It tells us that something is fundamentally wrong with the way we're doing things. Which governors...
Can I come in again? I beg your pardon, Shegun. I beg your pardon. Let me come in again, and I do hear what you said, because Kesandu has called in from Imo State. Good morning, Kesandu. And as you know...
Good morning.
Okay.
And good morning to your guest. We're fine. All thanks to God.
Yes.
Uncle Yori, I want us to be very as blunt as possible because this is going to help us for the situation we have found ourselves. First and foremost, are we all Nigerians? Yes. Do we live in this country? Yes. Is the common man on the streets of Ituboma, the local government where I come from, happy with the state of things in the country? The answer is no. Who should take responsibility of what is happening in this country? Bola Ahmed Tinubu. These are sacred facts that are not negotiable for any reason. Let me tell you, for anybody who says what is happening in this country is not Mr. President for trying to judge. See, if Mr. President knows that he's not ready to take up responsibility and end some of the mistakes Buhari did, maybe Jonathan, anybody, his predecessors, he shouldn't have contested. That's just the
Kesandu, one moment, please. I do beg your pardon, but if you look at the tone we set for this conversation, first of all, Otumba Showumi, it's his viewpoint of a year of Tinubu in office. It's his viewpoint. And we are here, yourself, myself, and other people who have called in, to contribute our own. Now, as to whether or not Tinubu takes responsibility where you were going, Tinubu has never for one moment dodged any responsibility, has not asked for any slack, has said, do not be sorry for me. I begged for this job, quote unquote. I begged for this job. I know what it takes, and I'm going to do it. And I feel you. I know what the issues are. I mean, so just to put it in the perspective of nobody is saying that we are where we want to be, but we sort of wanted to try and keep it.
Yes, sir. I agree to a reasonable extent, but why? Because
we wanted to keep it on the level of contribute yours, and just look at Tinubu and his stewardship in the past 1 year or so.
The truth about it is that no matter what policy we bring in, no matter what English we speak on several economic things, the question is, how has the common man in the streets of Lagos, Kaduna, Imo State felt this administration? That's the truth. And let me be blunt, sir. If you go outside to have this assessment, I can tell you that people are not happy. So all we're saying is that Mr. President.
Nobody is
Dot your
happy.
I's and cross your T's.
Okay, sir. Kesandu, I beg your pardon. Thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you. I'm certainly not rebutting what you are saying, but even Otumba Showme has implied that it is what it is. Nobody is happy. Nobody is happy. But he's saying that in this circumstance, what can be done in the following year that might perhaps make a difference. So I am not rebutting anything that you have said because I don't think the APC people supporters, and that's not what we're about on this particular program, I don't think APC supporters are going to say that they are happy, whereas the PDP or the Labour Party are saying that they are not happy. That's not what we're talking about. Tinubu is in charge of Nigeria now, and everybody is hurting. And that it is against that backdrop that Otumba Showme is looking at it and was just about to go on to his suggestions as to, well, we have to manage what we have now. Let's see what can be done going forward.